In 2001, a German studio called Piranha Bytes released a game that almost nobody outside of Europe played. It had horrible controls, clunky animations, an interface that seemed designed by someone who had never used a computer, and yet it became one of the most beloved RPGs ever made. 25 years later, a Spanish studio tried to bring it back. But the question isn't whether they succeeded. The question is, what does success even mean when you're remaking something people loved specifically because of its flaws? Welcome everyone to another episode of Gametopsy, where we dissect the latest video games to determine whether they succeeded or failed. And today, we're dissecting the Gothic 1 remake. What is Gothic and why does it matter? Before we open the game up, some context. Gothic came out in 2001. It was developed by Piranha Bytes, a tiny German studio that had no business making something this ambitious. The premise was simple on paper. You are a nameless prisoner thrown into a magical mining colony sealed off from outside the world by a dome. No quest markers, no hand-holding, and no maps to tell you where to go. You figured it out by talking to people, making enemies, joining factions, and dying. A lot. But what made Gothic legendary wasn't its technical execution, it was its world. The colony felt genuinely alive in a way that most games in 2001 didn't. And honestly, most games in 2026 still don't. NPCs had schedules, factions had real politics, your reputation actually mattered. Every single person in that world could beat you to death if you disrespected them enough. It was brutal, opaque, and completely unforgiving. And people absolutely loved it for exactly those reasons. So when THQ Nordic announced a full remake, developed by Alchemia Interactive in Spain, built from scratch in Unreal Engine 5, the Gothic community held its breath. They only had a single question. Could you modernize this thing without killing what made it special? On paper, the remake sounds great. It features a world filled with dynamic NPCs, a branching storyline with 3 joinable factions, an overall combat system, expanded quests, and enhanced visuals. But does it hold up under the knife? Well, without further ado, let's open it up. Chapter 1 Narrative. Gothic's story was never its strongest element in 2001, and the remake doesn't pretend otherwise. You are the nameless hero, literally nameless. No backstory, no special powers, nobody knows who you are. You get thrown into the colony and you survive. That's it. That's the premise. But here's what the original understood and what this remake successfully preserves. The narrative isn't in the main quest, it's in the world. The colony has 3 factions. The old camp controls the ore and the muscle, the new camp wants to use the ore to destroy the barrier and escape. The swamp camp has given up on escape entirely and found religion instead, a mushroom-based religion, but a religion nonetheless. Each faction has its own politics, its own hierarchy, its own way of treating you. And critically, who you align with changes what you see, what you know, and what you miss. A player who joins the old camp will have fundamentally different understanding of events than someone who joins the swamp camp. That's real faction design for you, not the fake kind where you pick a color and get a different hat. Moreover, the writing has been expanded and updated for the remake. Some of it lands beautifully. The dialogue has wit and personality that most modern RPGs completely lack, but some of it is uneven. There are moments where the script feels like it was written by 2 different teams who never compared notes. But overall, the narrative does what Gothic's remake was always supposed to do. It makes the world feel real rather than telling you a story. Chapter 2 Gameplay and Mechanics. This is where the Gothic remake is going to lose half its potential audience and earn the absolute devotion of the other half. Let me be direct with you. The early hours can be so punishing that they risk pushing players away before the systems properly open up. This is not an exaggeration. The opening hours of the Gothic remake are genuinely hostile. You will lose fights to animals, you will lose fights to NPCs who decided they don't like your face, you will pick up a quest, attempt it, and discover you had no business attempting it yet. The game doesn't tell you all this, you find that out the hard way. But the Gothic 1 remake is still one of the most confident games of the year. It doesn't compromise on the 2001 vision of giving the reins to the player, and offers next to no guidance through a merciless and unforgiving world. And that confidence is exactly the right word. This game knows what it is and refuses to apologize for it. Furthermore, the combat has been overhauled from the original's notoriously clunky system. It's now closer to a modern action RPG. You dodge, you parry, you time your strikes. It's not as fluid as Elden Ring, but it has weight and consequences that most action RPGs abandon in favor of spectacle. But the progression is where Gothic has always been brilliant, and the remake preserves this perfectly. You don't level up by killing things. You get learning points and you have to find teachers, actual characters in the world, who will teach you skills in exchange for ore, favors, or reputation. Want to learn sword fighting? Find someone who knows sword fighting and convince them to teach you. This creates something almost no modern RPG attempts, a world where your progression is socially embedded. You need people, you can't just grind in isolation. Progression system is rewarding once it clicks. The faction structure meaningfully shapes how you experience the world, and the sense of learning the colony through struggle is something few modern RPGs attempt at this scale anymore. However, and this is important, it is a promising and frustrating experience in roughly equal measure. The PS5 version specifically has performance issues. It is held back by performance wars, and for new players it's hard to recommend in its current state. But on PC the experience is considerably better, but the console players are getting a rougher version of this game right now. Chapter 3: Art and Sound Design. This is where the remake genuinely earns its existence. Alchemy Interactive has rebuilt the value of mines in Unreal Engine 5, and the result is stunning in a way that feels specific and considered rather than generic and pretty. This doesn't look like every other fantasy RPG. The colony has a grim, industrial, lived-in quality. The old camp looks like a place built out of desperation, not architecture. The swamp has an oppressive, humid, spiritually unhinged atmosphere that makes you genuinely uncomfortable. The lighting is exceptional. There are moments walking through the colony at dusk where this game achieves something that only the best open worlds manage. The feeling that the place exists whether you're in it or not. The character models are mixed. Major NPCs look detailed and expressive, but minor NPCs occasionally look like they wandered in from lesser production. It's uneven, but never immersion breaking. And then there's the music. Kai Rosenkranz is back for the soundtrack in the remake. He scored the originals, and getting him to return is awesome. Kai Rosenkranz's original Gothic soundtrack is legendary in European RPG circles. It's dark, atmospheric, with a specific melancholy that matched the world perfectly. And having him to return to score the remake isn't just fan service, it's the single best creative decision Alchemia made on this project. Furthermore, the sound design beyond music is equally strong. The colony sounds alive, ambience shifts between camps, the weather affects the audio landscape, the sound of combat feels appropriately brutal and unsatisfying, which is exactly right. Because fighting in Gothic shouldn't feel like a power fantasy. It should feel like a desperate person swinging a sword at something that wants to kill them. Chapter 4: Overall Feel. Here is the most important question for any remake. Does it feel like the thing it's remaking, or does it feel like a modern game wearing its predecessor's face? Gothic Remake feels like Gothic. That sounds obvious, but it isn't. Most remakes sand down the edges. They add quest markers, waypoints, tutorials, accessibility options, and gentle nudges in the right direction. They take something that was difficult and strange and make it comfortable and familiar. But fortunately, Alchemia did not do this. Every victory in Gothic feels like winning the lottery on the same day all your childhood bullies file for bankruptcy. And that description is perfect, and it captures something essential. Gothic Remake gives you nothing. Every piece of progress you make in this game is genuinely earned. The colony doesn't care about you. The world existed before you arrived and it will continue when you leave. That feeling of being genuinely small in a world that has its own logic and its own rules is something modern open world design has almost entirely abandoned. We've been conditioned by games that want us to feel like heroes from the first minute, but the Gothic Remake wants you to feel like a prisoner, and it succeeds. The Gothic 1 remake may have made some concessions for new players, but it remains an RPG for people who think Daggerfall was the last good Bethesda game. And that's niche. It's a specific, passionate, and underserved niche. And this game serves them with complete conviction. But the question of who this is for matters though. If you want a modern accessible RPG with a great story and smooth onboarding, this will frustrate you deeply. But if you want a world that pushes back, that demands patience and attention and genuine engagement, there is almost nothing like this in 2026. Final verdict. The Gothic 1 remake is not for everyone. It will actively repel players who want modern conveniences and smooth onboarding. Also, the PS4 version needs patches before I can recommend it unreservedly. But for players who want a world that respects their intelligence, punishes their mistakes, and rewards their patience, this is one of the most genuinely interesting RPGs of the year. And in an era where most games are afraid to challenge you, Gothic Remake is afraid of nothing. And that alone makes it worth examining. And for that, it gets a Gametopsy grade of B+. But what about you? Have you played the Gothic Remake? Did it make you throw your controller or fall in love with it? Or both at the same time? Tell me in the comments down below. And if you like this video, then click like, share and subscribe to watch more game topsies like this one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay sober.